You're listening to the Digital Deep Dive, where we tackle the newest trends, strategies, and pain points shaping growth across the digital landscape. From Amazon and D2C to international expansion, join our host and e-commerce leaders across multiple industries for in-depth discussions on how to maximize your brands in the digital arena. Now, here's your host, Aaron Conant.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Digital Deep Dive podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Conant, and today we're going to dive into retail media everywhere. I think a lot of the brand conversations I'm having right now, that phrase is perfectly fitting as everybody's trying to figure it out. There's this huge push on the digital side. What's happening with in-store? Where do budgets come from? How do we measure it? What do metrics look like? Is it even possible? How do you tie it all together? These are all fun things. And Lauren Levick from the Digital Shelf Institute a while back connected me to Nate over at Microsoft and Paul at Vibenomics for a great conversation after she had one. And if you don't know Lauren, I would check out that podcast as well. She's awesome and has some great people, but it's also a great connector. And so this is a topic that's showing up in my network a ton. So hopefully this is going to be a great conversation that a lot of people enjoy today. But first, let's kind of kick it off with some intros. Nate, I'll kick it over to you. If you want to do a brief intro, on yourself, the company, your role, what you guys are doing over there at Microsoft, and then kick it over to Paul and he'll do the same. And then we'll jump into the conversation. Sound good?
Sounds great. I'm Nate Pinkston. Great to meet everybody, or at least virtually. I'm head of growth over at Microsoft Retail Media, and so that's a division within Microsoft Advertising. So for many years, known mostly as the place you would go buy Bing search, the second favorite place to buy your search campaigns. But we're making some noise to bring together a real ecosystem around advertising and truly bring a lot of these channels and different components together to give you opportunities to tap into advertising across a variety of spectrums, channels, avenues, publishers, supply sources, all together. And from my perspective in the retail media arm, what we're really looking to do is help retailers build media businesses, become good media partners, and using our platform to really drive significant monetization of a retail media program. And that's through that work that I met a wonderful gentleman named Paul Brenner.
Wow. I'm a wonderful gentleman now. That's fantastic. So yeah, Paul Brenner, I head up the retail media network and the retail media partnerships at Vibenomics. We are part of a larger company called Mood Media, who has probably 90% of retail stores in the country has some service that they use, whether that's sense or video or audio. They acquired us because of the growth of retail media and digitizing in store. And so I now have the benefit of their scale and our tech stack that we built over the last 4 or 5 years, to really bring a lot of these conversations, bring the retail media groups over into the in-store conversation, which is new, right? For the most part. And I look for people like the wonderful gentleman, Nate Pinkston, to really figure out how to make this work better.
Awesome. Let's, jump into this conversation as a whole. Nate, I'm going to kick it off with you, and then we're just going to roll with an open conversation. Just as it goes, in this, retail media network, not a lot of people, it doesn't come up in my conversations. That's 20 to 30 a week, up every vertical, start up the Fortune 100. Like, it's everybody. The Microsoft Retail Media Network is not something at top of people's mind, but obviously it's something that you guys found is worth investing in. So what are you tackling there? What are the biggest questions that you're being asked as people try to learn a little bit more? Because you guys are a massive company. You guys win in the things you dabble in. This is something I think everybody's going to have to know about, but would love to hear how you're tackling this space as a whole.
Yeah, I guess I'll start by saying we probably could rebrand a little bit better, but you also might have heard of our platform as Promote IQ, which for several years powered a lot of the big programs out there. So Microsoft acquired Promote IQ in 2019. We've since rebranded as Microsoft Retail Media, but that's really a part of combining this ecosystem where what we're focused on and the way Microsoft is approaching it is they're an ecosystem company. There's an argument to say that it's about the power of scale is really how Microsoft is successful and wins when they dabble. And that's the same approach they're taking to the retail media ecosystem. And after acquiring Promote IQ, we've also acquired Xandr and brought in their suite of products as well. So you've got their monetize and invest products, the DSP side of the house. And that's helped us bridge this gap between just the retail media only player in like a private marketplace or walled garden situation, tapping into the open internet with the Xandr products, and even into open search and Microsoft's audience network. And so when you bring all of this together, you actually have a much more compelling offering than we could have brought to the table 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And so that's how Microsoft's thinking about it. But we are fundamentally about empowering our clients, both retailers, advertisers, agencies, to be successful in reaching their potential, their advertising goals. That could be a ROAS, performance goal, display, reach, awareness. We're looking at the ways that we bring the right tools to empower them. So it's a solution set. It's a solution set to tap into this ecosystem. But we think the most power comes from when you can do it everywhere. And so that's why we love the term retail media everywhere. And you've got to be able to get to where your consumers are. And that's where, right now, 85% of conversions are still happening in store. They're still happening, physically.
So you're capturing the conversion in metrics in store?
We do. We have been for about 2-3 years with point of sale data. And even 2 years ago, we could take an online digital impression or click and link that user to their purchases in store where there was identification. But think of entering your loyalty number at a grocery store. It's probably your phone number. Who doesn't do that to save those extra few cents on every product you're buying? It's phenomenal identification and match rates. But because you do that, and we've got you identified when you're browsing on the web from your time checking out, you're in the app. Yes, we can tie all of those point of sale conversions to digital impressions. And we extended that about 1.5 years ago, even to when a lot of our retailers have in-store mode and app. And so that's a different experience, but we serve unique ad placements for those in-store moments that help drive in-store conversion, link it back to that point of sale data in store. And now you've got something stitched together. We haven't done to date is do something in the physical ecosystem of as you're walking around. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are the ways we can help engage a shopper as they're physically in store, which everything we see is, shoppers are back. It was actually a pretty great Black Friday and looking like a good Q4 for retail. But a lot of that, honestly, is as people are back shopping and they're doing it physically in real life.
Yeah, Paul, like you're nodding your head this whole time. Would love to hear your thoughts here as well. But I totally agree. Like I'm back in the store. I have people I think like to shop. Now, maybe they don't like to shop for cars or something like that, but traditional retail, a lot of it, people like to shop.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, there's numbers you use like what Nate used, which is like the percentage of people, right, that still shop. The reason I think Microsoft and Vibe eventually like started to be a little more serious about what could we do together, what can we work on together, was when we hit scale. And now, when you think about it in other numbers, like we are for Vibenomics, for the retail customers that we serve, we audio or visual foot traffic in the store is about a little over 1 billion visits a month of people. 170 million unique people. Multiple shopping. We have things that show 70% of people that visit grocery stores we serve also go to a home improvement store that we serve, right? And also go to a C-store we serve. So 7 times a month minimum, right? Those people are in the store. So, that's better than viewership, really, when you look at it.
So then are you stitching all that together? And then when you're talking the audio and the visual, this is in-store media as a whole. And then how sophisticated does that get based on where people are at in the store and who's in the store and what they're doing?
Yeah, I think today we're still treating it as mostly just in-store in the venue. We're piloting a lot of things to start isolating into the soon to be ratified IAB zones, right? The taxonomy was a big part of that discussion. So we've kind of got that solidified now, and we're going to march towards that. But the 1 billion number is just feet in the stores, right? And it's actually about 1.19 billion, if you want the exact number. But that's where, I think because we're the physical store company, Nate doesn't really have to worry about, that gap in between. It's just that we're compliant, right? It's trusted. We have the relationship with the retail media networks to, be able to work with them and get better at it. And so that's, I'm listening and nodding with him because, you always say 80%, but it sure sounds a lot different when you say over 1 billion people shopping a month in just the venues that we cover, right? And that's, top 3 pure grocers and, drugstore, large drugstore. So substantial, part of the population.
No, but what I love about it, it's this stitching together of everything, which nobody has done quite yet. Right. And there's everybody's been asked to spend more and more retail media dollars, I think, thanks to Amazon, right? Who ironically doesn't have the true in-store presence for most of their products that they're selling. I mean, there's the Whole Foods and everything else, but for most of what they're doing, there's not the in-store presence, but they drove this huge influx of retail media dollars, and they were able to show, a ROAS around it. And then all these, the other retailers were asking for money back as well. And what brands are asking for is like, I don't care where I spend the money. I just need to have some attribution. I need to show that it's being impactful, and I'll spend money with you. But we're still trying to figure that out. Is that what you hear, like, Nate, as a whole?
Yeah. I think it's even, what I would say is advertisers need to tell a story and justify the performance of the dollars they spent. And they need to do it across channels. They need to do it across mediums. And so wherever it's going, they've got to be able to tell a story back to their own stakeholders, bosses, the public market, if they're a public company. And so they need help there. And we've worked in this scenario of Amazon and a few other walled gardens for a long time. And they all kind of, even retail media networks that are part of like actual other networks, a lot of them have their own nuances, ways of doing attribution, and it's not an apples to apples comparison in a lot of cases. And it's frustrating to brands and agencies who want to do this at scale and are getting to a point where are they going to manage 50 different channels, 50 different retail media networks that all are a little bit different, and you need to know the nuances. They're going to spread spend across all of them. I don't see that lasting. And so what we are really pushing for, and we're trying to work in partnership with people who sit across large footprints like Vibenomics, but also with the IAB and the broader industry communities, is there needs to be a way to look at incrementality and look at it across channels. And that's going to necessitate standardization in what we talk about as retail media metrics. And, something as simple as return on ad spend, which is hopefully true sales. We can get into whether you like modeled sales or not, but, things like consistent attribution, things like what an impression is, whether it's on actual view or sometimes on page load some places. Like, we need to get to a place where we can all agree things have the same standard. And that's what we're pushing for. We think that you need to be able to look at a retail media dollar that's been on-site, off-site, even in social networks, and especially when it comes in store, and be able to evaluate those dollars head to head. And marketers want to be able to look at that and say, I know which channels are driving real value for me. And I think if you look at a couple players in the market, like Unilever, for instance, who's starting to bring together how they look at gross sales instead of like, let me have a person who's just focused on this type of budget and just needs to look at this ROAS. And let's pretend that we're not going to double count any sales across channels if ever I'm getting ROAS from 10 different sources. It's going to be something that consolidates, is brought together. And Microsoft has long taken a perspective that measurement's incredibly important. Data and transparency is one of our key pillars of how we run our business. And retail media from the beginning has been something where we think bringing that to the advertisers is core to the value prop we have. So we are building together in a way that we can tap into even partners like Vibenomics and show that incrementality and give you metrics consistent across your spend for all of those channels that we see.
Yeah, I mean, Vibenomics almost becomes essential, or a company like them, because, like you're saying, they want the whole story, and there can't be a gap in it. And over 1 billion store visits, we got to track it. We have to track it at this point in time.
And like I said, we leapfrogged forward when Mood acquired us because they automatically had all these retail experience, merchant side. Don't get me wrong, merchant side. I have to win the retail media business. And because in-store is such a popular topic, there's lots of competitors popping up right now, right? I could name 4 or 5 on this call that I go head to head with all the time, but we have the scale at this moment, and that's where we are. I will say, kind of why I push hard for this as well with Microsoft, and there are others I try to talk to, but I saw this kind of silo. Let's say I work with 10 major retail media networks, right? Each one, to Nate's point, has their own way of approaching their data structure, their process, right? What they're willing to share, right? What they are able to do, right? Whatever it might be. And so we were trying to go down this path. Let's say we would take, maybe it wasn't like a Unilever, as an example, and you look across all these retail media networks to be able to navigate all of those different, it's one buy, right? For us, but how do you coordinate all these different approaches? And that was difficult enough. And now we've got to the point where, we're in discussions about this omni-channel, and now it's even more complicated to do. It's not something I can do, right? I have to turn to somebody else that has this specialty. And it's early. I mean, it's going to be, I think, a lot of lessons learned in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on a couple of things. One is, the competition that's out there, but that's slowly shrinking. I think what I've seen, as the PE/VC money dries up, you have to have scale at this point in time. You have to be post-Series A and profitable, or you're not getting the next round, because there are companies that have established themselves that people feel safer putting their money behind. And so I'm seeing, some of the smaller ankle biters, start to go away. Anybody could have started a digital anything company over the past 2.5 years, it seems like, because there's just money flying everywhere. It's those key players that, are in place and, like you said, have scale. The other thing that I was thinking about, though, Nate, while you were talking, was around who's driving this, because what I'm seeing is people are just starting to realize they want this. It's been so busy, and there's been so much money, and people have been signing up for all this different stuff. And now the newest trend that I have right now, I'd say for the past 3 to 6 months, is all around profitability and rationalization around spend. And I would say a year ago, what you're talking about is kind of almost a nice to have. Oh, that's neat. That'd be neat to have. But I think within the next 6 to 9 months, that what you're talking about is almost going to be a must have, right? You're going to have to be able to tell a better story, or you're not going to be able to rationalize the right spend. Or you're going to be able to rationalize some spend, but in order to win, it needs to be the right spend.
You hit on something that I don't think is isolated to venture capital. Is resources and money is, more scarce. It's harder to come by. You need to justify the return and value you're going to get for it, whether you're a VC investing in a new company and tech startup, or whether you're a marketer and you've got less marketing budget this year or in 2024 than you did in 2020 or 2021. It was a boom time for e-commerce and everybody wanted to go into digital, but now they've got to look at what they've got in terms of their own goals and how do they hit those benchmarks. And as it becomes harder, and as CPGs and any advertiser looks at being most efficient, or more efficient at least, with that ad spend, they're going to ask tougher questions. And so I think it's going to be driven by the scarcity of ad dollars, that you have to be able to provide more value to the advertisers. And so that, that demand is going to flow to where it's getting the most value. And the supply in the market is going to have to change to reflect what drives that, or left behind. I mean, I do see a world where not every retail media network is going to thrive. And you need to look at what your model is going to be and evolve to be a good media partner. And that's something we talk to our retailers a lot, is if you want to be a successful retail media network, you have to be a good media partner. And media business is a particular thing. Like, they think about and make decisions in a certain way, and you've got to make sure you're driving value against those decision-making goals.
Yeah, I think the timing of what the IAB doing is really that inflection moment, right? There's not much the IAB has gotten involved with over history that hasn't become more of an accountable, right? Metric driven type of business. And that itself shows you that the next 6 to 9 months says that's ratified, and it now includes in store, and there's requirements for how retail media dollars are proven, right, as effective. It is going to put more and more pressure on, automation, right, better decision making, being more inclusive of all the ways you can reach your shopper. And I mean, I was, you have some luck in your life, and that's kind of what I guessed would happen like 3 or 4 years ago when I joined this company. I didn't know it would be this size of market. For God, I never could predict that. But there's so many factors why it's grown. But I always knew that in-store would have to become digitized to support, what kind of launched as on-site. I thought it would go on-site in-store. I was wrong there. It went on-site, off-site, and now back to us. But it's just, I think the IB thing is just an inflection. It's just, hey, we have to take this more seriously.
Did you want to highlight some of that? And then that's probably a whole nother episode that I'd have with the IAB. I did one a few months back, but do you want to highlight some of what you're talking about, just for people if they're not familiar?
Yeah, I mean, it was open for public comment. I think it's closed now, and my assumption is by timing it would be rolled out at the IB ALM event. I'm kind of guessing, but that's normal. It's really just an exercise on what are the true definitions of the parts of on-site, the parts of off-site, the parts of in-store, for in-store audibility and viewability standards, minimum data that needs to be returned back for it to be attributable. It's deep. I mean, it's a deep document. What I really liked the way that it was Jeffrey Bustos that ran it. He really brought in a lot of voices. I mean, this committee was humongous initially, and then the measurement team was smaller, but it was still retailers and brands and appropriate folks like service providers like us, or in the on-site space like Microsoft, and they just really listened to everybody. I mean, it was amazing how much input was given, which to me that's why I say it's an inflection point, because there were so many viewpoints that wanted it to be better, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, we just want to all be talking about the same thing when we say something, right? And you look back 2 years, if somebody said retail media, most people didn't know about what it was. And, oh, wait, it's also still in store, let alone, hey, digital media. Oh, wait, it's Amazon. It's, Walmart Connect. But this is, I mean, the podcast that just actually released yesterday was all around Walmart Connect and their digital retail media whole arm as a whole. People are trying to soak this up, but kind of like, Nate, what you're talking about, everybody they go to talk to is telling them something different. There's no like standardization, and they're just like, I couldn't even craft a story if I wanted to, right? It's like,
well, and it's going to continue to be a challenge. I think Paul mentions 2024 being a big year. We're not going to solve for this immediately or really quickly. The IAB stuff is a great example where we're moving the industry and setting some expectations, but you're not going to get people to snap to it. Even from my own perspective, Microsoft, platform roadmaps, those are not short-term things. And so you build towards that. But I think what you're seeing is a movement and a push, not just from the advertisers and agencies, but also from retailers who want to buy into the most valuable way to do this, set this up right, get this moving forward towards a direction they think the market and industry is going. And so you will get this alignment through things like the IAB, just generally how people are making decisions. But I'll also throw out there for the advertisers who are thinking about, gosh, how should I do this? How can I do this? What's the best way? It is still a time with so much explosive growth to jump on and try out some of these new mediums, because I think you're still going to also get, we haven't figured out how to price it right. And so we're trying to get people to do adoption. And guess what that means is, frankly, we're underpricing it because we know it'll have value at that rate. And so it's a great time if you need that extra way to prove, good marketing return, good value, go out and try some of these new mediums, because until things get shaken out, there's not going to be maturity in the pricing either. So there is still a lot of opportunity as we evolve.
I like to say we're pricing for results, Nate. That's what we're doing.
Well, results we know we're going to get because we know it's powerful.
That's right. We're confident in our results. We did that conversation with Lauren, and Nate and I have done quite a few things together back even the path to purchase. And, we just keep reinforcing the importance of getting brands involved. I've had some success after Lauren's DSI posting with some of the RFIs that I'm involved with. I had some brands reach out and talk to some about how they could be a part of that, right? To be testing and learning. We've had our own sales team getting more responses about that. And then we kind of hit a wall when people think it's too complicated, right? It's too hard to execute. Maybe just an in-store is easy enough. If you're one retailer specific, yeah, we can do that. In-store only with a couple retailers, oh boy, now it's getting hard. Go to, one retailer with in-store and omnichannel, head explodes, And so I don't know what, Nate, if you guys have heard more stuff. We haven't really talked about that between the two of us, but I've gotten more traction, but it's still not any easier to execute it.
Well, it's Q4.
I'm looking out. I'm looking at
a lot going on.
Q3 of next year.
Everybody wants to. Q4 is the time to do what works. Everyone's risk averse in Q4. But what I'd say is, barriers to entry for advertising channels, especially new advertising channels, is not a new thing. And we've seen that for a long time. It's been one of our thoughts and one of our core focuses. The value that we bring to retail media networks is a scalability to engage brands of all sizes and allow even smaller advertisers who may not be able to afford creative agencies to get into display and get into the game and have a way to access those types of mediums because they work. And so we continue to see that as a really important way to democratize any new channel. And so I think that's important. I think that will be part of it. Some of the stuff that we do is look at ways, can you leverage media across multiple channels? Can we do things to import or use similar sizes? I mean, there's not standard IAB sized stuff the way programmatic display has across retail media networks, but can you at least tap into those? So if you have something, it can be repurposed. But also when it comes to, creating new display creative, I mean, one of the things we're really excited about to open perhaps a whole other can of worms is how we can use the power of AI to either create net new creative for people or adapt and modify existing creative to apply it across new channels. And so we see that as a big part. And perhaps, I don't know when this is going to air, but I could be jumping the gun with some of our announcements. But I mean, Microsoft happens to be okay at AI / I think we're probably leading the way and doing things that are going to maybe define how we think about AI, particularly in advertising. And we're bringing that to the table. We've already done things like incorporated ChatGPT into the new Bing, and we're rolling that out in Copilot fashions, not just across our Office products, but across the entire Microsoft ecosystem. We're going to have a Copilot for just about everything. And that's going to include AI generated creative. We have a whole creative suite that's going to allow you to tap that into that in an automated way.
That's going to be huge. Because we talk about profitability, content creation is expensive. And people consume content more than they ever have before, and it just keeps getting faster. Companies need more than ever, and yet it's cost a ton. You just got to throw people at it right now. I mean, if you solve for that, when I should probably say.
It's a when. It's absolutely a when.
Yeah. It's going to be super interesting when we get to the point where I, as a brand, can take my brand guidelines, my product descriptions, and upload them in and say, okay, here's the performance I want. And then the retail media network is going to ingest it, kick out creative. Maybe it has to go to brand team or regulatory affairs.
Gotta have brand safety on both sides of the house for sure.
Yep. Right. And then it just starts churning, and it's placing different bids across different platforms based on regional demographics, total income, lifetime value of the customer. And it's upping and lowering the bids based on what's performing, A, B, C, D, E, F, G testing the different content based on regionality.
Yep. Well, and not just that ease for your first setup, but going back to the retail media theme, it allows you to tie all of these different channels together more consistently and pivot in the same type of speed and scale that digital is used to. So I love examples that Paul has where you can take, maybe you've got a national branding campaign that you're running in a number of different stores, but you can determine, well, actually, maybe this creative isn't working. You don't have to wait 6 weeks to roll something out and get printers to do it. And maybe that's actually, we're talking months with some of the display technology that Paul's able to bring to the table. You marry that with some of these AI channel unification tools, and all of a sudden you can be switching creative or optimizing across multiple creatives, literally in real time.
Yeah. We've done campaigns that shock agencies where maybe it's, well, we got to execute it digitally in like 3 business days in store, but then it's not working the way they want it to. So they'll send us new creative and we'll just change it. Right.
Yeah.
And, or, hey, we forgot to add multicultural. So let's target stores that index over 25% Hispanic speaking. Here's new creative, like, boom, like that can be automated. I mean, we're playing with that more lab specific, let's say in times A/B test, right? Or, 100 versions of one creative that's a lot more specific to regionality. But even on the generative AI for the visual side, I mean, the screen tech we work with and the computer vision, I mean, it's AI based. So if you wanted to say that like the audience is prevalently female right now, then make it female oriented. And if that person goes away, maybe it's a stock and then there's a male image, and it's just changing, It can't be like a flashcard. You're not looking like 6-second Vine videos here, but, I think it's going to be, something that has some resonance. So it's not, kind of ugly. But that's definitely where I see it going.
And what's right behind that is Minority Report. Remember that movie?
With the swipe.
Predict the future.
Yeah. And he's walking through the mall.
Actually might happen.
Yeah.
The mall.
Yeah, Mary's walking through the mall, and all of a sudden that lady drops in. It does a facial recognition. It's like, hey, your wife's birthday's coming up, right? And it's an AI generated holograms like, hey, you should buy this for her. It's like, we're not that far.
I think a couple of
I don't know if people are going to respond to that super positively. I think there's a, I would be
there's a difference of could we and should we, right?
Yeah. I think it's a couple more generations, like my kids, they'll probably be accepting of that. I might still be in the generation that questions that.
Yeah.
Well, I will say, I think where, not to go too deep on the AI, because I think we could have a whole other podcast on it, but where you may see it start to show up more and more is predictive analytics around who's going to buy. So rather than just, what we show you, it's more about what are the audiences that are going to be most successful? And you start to put those AI models against that, and they'll help shape what your targeting is or how you need to think about deploying certain creatives or certain tactics. And even getting to the retail media everywhere, can you optimize based on those conversion points and where you see different tactics resonating more, having more impact? And you can start to do it in regional ways and let the computer model solve for you how to do some of that optimization. And that's absolutely the type of thing we see is not very far away. We're already doing it when it comes to relevancy and what drives the most clicks. it's not a leap to say, all right, let's take that across channels. And when we're doing that cross-channel measurement and measuring true multi-touch retail media everywhere, let's optimize how you're spending across all those channels.
I think on the influence side, way back in the day when Amazon filed for anticipatory shipping, and everybody's like, that's so silly. How would they know what I'm going to buy before I buy it? And then everybody's like, actually, they're getting it really close, almost to my doorstep, where it's not quite shipping before I want it, but it almost is. It almost is, where I can be online at 10 o'clock at night and it'll say it'll be there by 8 a.m. Like, wait, what? Like, they knew I was going to buy something. They totally knew I was going to buy something. I mean, I'm glad you went down the AI path, though, and maybe we should have another whole podcast on it, because if I had you on and if I had Microsoft on, right, and didn't ask about AI, like my phone would light up as soon as this thing. Why didn't you ask them? Why didn't you ask them?
It's we're infusing it into everything that we do, and I don't want to cut Paul out too, because I know they're looking at different ways to leverage AI as well. But we are able to take a lot of the use cases and look at what people are interacting with and use that to make it easier to activate, easier to set up campaigns. I mean, campaign management is another big hassle. So if you talk about managing many retail media networks, can you make it easier? Can you reduce the friction to both set up and manage campaigns and then get the metrics out to evaluate it? That's a big part of how we think AI is going to help people. We are all about the co-pilot. How can we make your life easier? And it's going to be across just about everything that we do.
Yeah. Well, I'm a user of AI. You're a creator of AI. So I just keep in my mind that all those are great visionary things, but if we don't start at point A, where things at least get connected,
Yes.
then, it's hard for me to take advantage of anything that I create as a user. Right. So that's why, I'm fascinated by it. I ask the same questions there, and I do have questions for Microsoft and where it's going, but I think that's a benefit to Microsoft sooner than it's a benefit to what I'm doing. Right.
100%. I mean, it's based on the data sets. And what's unique is you can have the LLMs that are out there, it's everything's pulling from, straight up from the internet. And that's going to become democratized, right? Because it's pulling from the same body of data. But what's unique is when you have these segments of companies, the Metas, the Amazons, right? The Microsofts, that have walled gardens of specific data sets that they are the only ones that have access to. That's where we see some really cool acceleration take place, because it's not being shared. And there's whole new insights and whole new products that can come out of it. It's crazy.
Well, and I want to go a little bit back to the topic we started with, which is retail media everywhere. Is data is all well and good, but if you can't activate it, and for the advertisers and marketers listening, like, obviously you need to engage with shoppers. And I mean, we see tremendous value in the type of reach and scale that Vibenomics and Mood Media bring to the table. And that's why we think it's not going to be just one platform, one provider serves all. There's going to be an ecosystem, and partnerships are key for us. We see a ton of value in partnering with folks like them and leveraging that, so that we can go to market together, that we can tap into the value and assets that each other have.
I mean, we're like right at the very beginning of this. I mean, it doesn't seem like we are, but we really are.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
There's a lot of road ahead.
Yeah. So as we kind of get to the end here, a couple of questions, and then I'm going to open it up if you guys have questions for me, because I've been picking your brains this whole time. It's been fantastic. Paul, what are you most excited about over the next year?
Yeah, I've mentioned it. I think the IAB work is going to drive significant new interest on all sides. Now that there's at least a good starting framework, and I'm already seeing that happen. So I'm really excited that leads to conversations like I'm having with Nate. But it's on the brand side, it's on the retail media side. It's all like the flywheel is turning now, right? And that gets me excited from in store. And that's enough for me, because that's about 7 days a week worth of work right now. But I think there's going to be a lot learned in 2024.
Nate, what are you most excited about popping up over the next year? Maybe you can't even share the stuff, right?
Well, I'll talk in generalities. I think there's stuff that'll be announced in the coming weeks. NRF and CES are always big times, so I'm sure many folks will be paying attention around those. But certainly throughout the year, I think there'll be some good stuff. But it really, to me, comes back to there's still an evolution of retail media that's happening, and I think there's a lot left that it needs to mature and shake out. And so I'm excited to see and hopefully shape what some of that is going to be. The biggest pieces that I'm excited for around that evolution, though, is building into more ecosystems, more interoperability, more ways to tap in across many channels at once. And then, frankly, I do love talking about AI and what it's going to do. Even internal at Microsoft, we have limits on how much we can take advantage of because just the computing power is so limited. So as that gets built out, we're going to get to do more with it and get to deploy it more day to day across everyone. And so I think that's just going to be really exciting because I do think that's a transformation that'll affect, honestly, not just advertising, but everything we do. I mean, like making PowerPoint slides and pivot tables is about to become so much easier that you almost don't even need to be trained on it anymore. So, those are the types of things that probably will seem smaller initially, but you'll find yourself saving so much time that I'm excited for that. Everyone can think more strategically if you're doing less pivot tables.
That's going to be so funny when I'm talking to the younger kids. You guys don't realize what it was like when I was young making PowerPoints, and they're not even going to know what VLOOKUPs and pivot tables are.
Gosh.
They're just going to talk into the computer and it's going to kick it back out.
Yeah.
Do you have any, more than happy to, I don't know, I've been picking your brain. Sometimes I feel bad and I just want to say, hey, do you have any questions for me? All I do is talk to brands all day, every day on digital strategy.
I mean, I'd love to know, are there things that you're hearing that we didn't touch on that, advertisers and marketers are really focused on? How are they thinking about 2024? And, what are the types of things that they're either most excited for or even most worried about?
So they're budgeting right now and trying to plan it all out. And there is a huge push to consolidate across the board all the different providers they have out there. That's not just, you can think of the direct consumer stack and all the apps they brought on. That's being consolidated. On the paid media side, Omnicom just bought Flywheel to get access to the Amazon piece, but underneath that Flywheel stack, they'd put in Perpetua and a bunch of other ad tech as a whole. So this single point, because they're tired of having 12 different conversations, every month with all these different, ad tech or service providers or agencies that are required to run them all. So that's a huge thing. But going along with it is how do we measure incrementality? And how do we measure conversion when there's all these different data streams? And there's like Megan Caroon over at ClearData is doing some pretty amazing things to be able to splice that apart and say, you can turn Facebook off. You don't even need it anymore, right? It's not moving. So just turn it off. And brands will turn it off and nothing will happen. They're like, whoa. And then it's not like that money goes away. They then are just going to be able to take it to a different platform that's working. Now, just because that platform is working better doesn't mean that don't have it optimized or they're using all the right data sets or they're not A/B, C, D, F, G testing. And so they're also looking for that. The story, here's what we're looking to do. Here's our partners to do it. Here's the results we're going to get. And we're super stoked. That's what they want to be able to tell with confidence, which, Paul is really I like what you're saying about the IAB is we can get to a level playing field on what terms mean and what people are looking for. And when they say this, they mean this. When we get all that, a year from now, it's going to be unbelievable is what it's going to be a year from now. Yeah. With the new tech that's going to be coming out, with the standardization around everything that we're talking about and some of these consolidations.
I have one small question to build on his, because I hate to sit over here and drink my own Kool-Aid all the time. But do brands care about in-store?
Oh, 100%.
Do they talk to you about it?
100%. 100%. I mean, the teams that are shrinking right now are the digital teams. There's kind of like this middle layer that's being removed, and in store, especially in CPG and grocery. I mean, the reality is, I mean, if you don't hit $40 now on a basket size online, you're not making money. Like it's just so hard. And so, and nobody's buying anything online. I shouldn't say nobody, but in general, most people, anything grocery or CPG related, now they might do buy online, pick up in store, but they're not buying a single tube of toothpaste online. They're not buying mouthwash. They're going into the store to buy it. That's just the reality. And that's twofold. Is one, because they're already there and they're buying it. The other is these companies are seeing, I can't make money doing that. I can't make money shipping a single tube of toothpaste. And it's hard to get a basket built, within these individual categories. And so and nobody wants to buy 15 tubes of toothpaste at a time. So it's $40. So in store, that pendulum that sat there, it was artificially pulled to the side by COVID. And now it's been snipped and it's coming back, and it's going to end up with a lot of transactions. It's not going to go all the way back to where it was before. Like maybe it was over here before, but it's going to settle at a nice point in the middle. And a good chunk of that's going to be in store. It just is. Now, maybe, what is it? Like high-end hobby stuff is going to stay online. Like you want to episode 1 X-Men. All right. Yeah. You're still going to eBay for that, but everything else, people are seeing a big uptick in store.
Well,
I mean, I think you saw it on Black Friday, Cyber Monday. There's a lot of people in stores buying stuff. So yeah. Well, this has been awesome. We did go a little bit over, but I think everybody, when I go short on conversations like this, people like shout, like, you should have kept going. But again, Nate, Paul, thanks so much for all you guys are doing for the network as a whole. This has been a really, really fun conversation. Would love to get one back on the schedule, maybe in the new year when we can tackle some of the AI stuff. I mean, I'll be at NRF for sure, probably at CAS. So we'll meet up there.
We will be there as well. We will be there as well.
But thanks again, my friends.
Okay. Thanks, Harry.
With that, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Digital Deep Dive. Thanks, everybody, for listening in.
Thank you.